been a quasi-secret of corrupt and misusing political enterprises in Electionville, USA. At Gray Matters, we think it is time to open this topic up to our viewers so we can all decide for ourselves just what is going on. After all, it is up to John Q. Public to do something about the knowledge we acquire, isn't it? Currently authoring a book on the subject of election fraud and suing the Suffolk County and New York State Board of Elections over his experiences is my guest on Gray Matters, Gray Matters contributor, Mr. Pete Nichols. Welcome, Pete.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to?
Well, apparently writing a book.
That'll keep you busy for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot longer than I thought.
So, tell us a little bit about the purpose of the book. We know.
Right. The book is in two parts. The first part chronicles my experience back in 2009 when I ran for town supervisor for Huntington. It starts with how I got involved in the party politics, the Huntington Town party politics. Through several meetings, eventually I became disenchanted with the way things were being run, so I decided to basically run for office myself. I didn't start out like that.
Yeah.
But initially I just wanted to help out, maybe write some speeches, knock on some doors. But what I saw was such a disgusting display of cronyism and incompetence. It just blew my mind. At one point, there was a big shouting match between myself and the chairperson, where she, in a very serious and sober face, said, I asked her, why are you doing this if you're not taking it serious? It is almost May and you haven't selected a candidate to run,
4 months later, 5 months later, hello.
And I said, why are you doing this if you're not taking it serious? And she says, patronage. Just right to my face. I says, what do you mean patronage? She says, well, patronage is when you help people get jobs. I said, I know patronage, but why are you doing it for patronage? And the response I got was, we get our people in and they help get votes. They help pass the legislation, they help get more people on our side, and basically she was saying that once we're in, we're good to go, and they can stay in, and then all the goodies will just rain from the sky.
What does that have to do with you and your ability?
Well, it has nothing to do with it. So unless you're a party insider, you really have no chance. Or the other side of the coin is, unless you have a lot of money to throw into the campaign, then you can get selected. But it's not the best and the brightest. It's the scammers and the schemers. I mean, the type of person that would run for office, and I exclude myself in this, but some people might say, is somebody who is a braggart, somebody who loves to talk about themselves, and somebody who is shameless, who will just say anything and do anything to get elected. And you're thrown into certain situations where you're looking for a vote, and do you say, I'll give you a perfect example. I was knocking on doors getting signatures, and somebody said to me, what's your stance on abortion? And I said, well, this is a local town race. I mean, why are you asking me? So just then, like 3 or 4 of his kids came out, and I says, well, I'm kind of glad my parents were against it. And he didn't think that was funny. Yeah. But people get, they get very agitated.
Party politics there's a lot
especially local. It's very rough.
I thought it would be worse on the federal level, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
But you entitled the book appropriately. This is a long title. How the Worst Got on Top and What We Can Do About It. Although it's a good title.
Well, it's loosely based on Frederick Hayek, who was an economist back in the 30s and 40s, wrote an article, and actually one of his chapters in a book was titled Why the Worst Get on Top. And he basically had 3 reasons why the worst get on top. And he just basically said that if you have a very simple message, the docile and gullible will believe it, and you hammer that message over and over again, and you find something that everybody fears, and you keep playing it over and over again, and you're able to trick the majority of the electorate. Because the greatest common denominator...
I don't like the way that sounds.
Well, he said if you dumb your message, basically what he said is...
dumb it down,
dumb it down enough, you will appeal to the widest audience. And that's how you get elected. So it's that kind of person.
So that's what we have on top, huh? That's what we have to think about?
Well, that's at least my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. It seems to me that what some people argue about, and this is what even when I see on television on the federal level, are relatively things that you really can't solve today. The things that have the larger element of what could happen in the society if this were to occur. Right. And the debate over that is almost always 50-50. Well, and you don't see a resolve on any of these things.
Right. You're never going to see a politician or somebody who's in office, which are, even though they're 2 separate people, a politician and someone who holds office, you're never going to see someone say something that's going to hurt their chances for re-election. Because once you get elected, it's like a drug fix. Immediately kicks in. You are in campaign mode to do and say things in order to get re-elected. So some of the sticky issues you sort of avoid because you don't want to alienate your base. But of course, then you have somebody like Trump who really doesn't give a crap what anybody thinks.
I know, and that sometimes is a good thing. I think it's a unique thing because he's a pragmatist. You know, he's not really a Republican. He's not really a Democrat.
Yeah,
he's a pragmatist.
Well, he's definitely not a politician.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of stepping on toes, which is why he got elected. I mean,
Right.
we've had very safe, sanitized candidates giving safe, sanitized speeches over the years.
And all of a sudden, here's this guy who says whatever he wants, and nobody can handle it.
And then, the rallies, I mean, people loved it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, and it may change. This is what I think. It may change politics forever. I don't know if that's true, but it may. I said may.
Listen, the biggest problem, and one of the themes in the book that I'm writing is the biggest problem in Huntington, at least from my perspective, is apathy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have less than 22% of the eligible voters bother to show up at the polls for local elections.
I go all the time.
So that's
I'm one of that 22%, I guess.
Yeah, 78% of the people stay home and they don't bother to vote. Now that 22% of the eligible voters represents about 8% of the entire population of the town of Huntington. So you have 8% of the people controlling what the other 92% experience in
That's
Huntington.
apathy, all right. That's a pretty
that's what
sick
happens.
and sorry situation.
There's a reason why there's apathy is because the two parties, the Republican and Democrats, with the help of the conservatives and on the other side, the
Liberals
left
or whatever,
wing, keep people out of the process. If, for example, if you wanted to run for office in your town, you would have to go to the party chair to screen with them, and then they had to select you.
Right.
And the first thing they're going to say is, who are you and where have you been for the last 10 years and how come you haven't been knocking on doors? And if that doesn't work, they'll say, okay, can you please tell me how much money you have, how much you want to contribute to the
Or
campaign?
could you be a poster child and make it?
Exactly. Well,
The veteran who just came back from the war limping with the crutches and stuff? I hate to say that.
I mean that can happen, but at the end of the day, he's going to be beholden to the party leaders, and that comes into patronage and jobs and legislation.
Yeah, it's not possible to overstep that, huh?
Very rare cases can you, but local politics is the worst.
Let's get to, if you run for office, you have to play by some ridiculous rules you mentioned in the note to me.
Right.
And as you also said a moment ago, you meant to keep the voters out of the process. Let's talk about the rules that you know of that you had to deal with.
Well, the rules, I mean, if you go through the experience, the first thing the most daunting, I guess, black hole that you have to face is the signatures. So the Republicans and Democrats, in order to keep people out of the process, decided that if you want to get nominated or you want to be considered for the nomination, you have to get 1,500 signatures from people registered in your party. Now, these can only be taken during 60 days, usually in the summer. And you can't get...
Thankfully, it's the summer.
Well, I mean, I was out there walking in July, sweating to death, knocking on doors to find out that someone else had already been there and asked them for a signature. So you can't sign somebody's petition twice. So they put in all these rules and caveats. And when I went there...
How do you get past that one? That's the tough one to get past.
Well, I didn't. I mean, I couldn't get the Republican nomination because they nominated Bill Dowler, but I got the conservative nomination, which was an arbitrary signature amount of like 440. So that was no problem. But I went on the Libertarian line to get the 1,500 signatures, and I think I ended up with like 1,505. Well, that was just enough for the lawyers in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party to sue me to challenge those signatures, whether they thought they were phony or not, or whether they were, just made up names, or whether they were legitimate. It didn't matter, because they filed a lawsuit. Two people filed lawsuits, and I didn't have the money to fight back, so I got knocked off the Libertarian line. So they didn't want me to have two lines. So I ran on the conservative ticket, and I only spent $500. I was really there to make a point, but I got 10% of the vote.
Hmm.
So maybe a little bit more money would have been a little bit closer, but At least we got a few issues out there that
Who won that year?
Frank Patron won.
Oh, Patron.
Yeah,
Geez.
I mean, my whole campaign, the whole
Can we go backwards a little bit and get him out of there? It's not somebody, not my
Well,
favorite person.
You know, that when I ran, it was I made a point to try to get in the debates and get the message out.
Well, how did this? Excuse me for 1 second to go
Mm-hmm.
back. What bothers me about Patron is that he said he was a Republican. He started out being a Republican,
Right.
And then somewhere in the middle he decided to switch.
Yeah, there's very
How did that happen?
nefarious reasons why he just switched parties, but basically he did not. I think he was on the verge of not being nominated for a second or third term, so
Yeah.
he did a flop and he went over to the Democrats. And I brought that up at one of the debates I was at.
That's pretty important.
And you know, but you have the same amount of people vote every single time, that 22%. So you're really talking 11 and 11.
how
so it's
good
going to be
would
12,
the
10.
Republicans feel that there was a switch to somebody that they had endorsed at
They
some
just care
point?
about
They just,
winning. They just care about
yeah,
winning.
well, they didn't win.
I know, but now
So
they
how do
have.
they feel now?
Well, recently they just won, and the big issue was
Yeah.
back when I ran. You know, there's a couple things I brought up that finally came to fruition. Number one was term limits.
Yeah,
I said, you know,
that's a major thing that has to be pushed
know,
for every office.
But the town board got cute, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll have term limits, but we're going instead of making it 8 years,
You're
we're
gonna
going to make it 12 years."
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, come on,
That's ridiculous. That's not term limits. That's a career.
Exactly, and then that doesn't count the 8 years you've already served. So you can be there for another 20 years.
Oh,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
God, it is horrible to think
Yeah.
about. So what other rules do they have?
So not only do you have to get a certain amount of signatures within a certain amount of time frame, they have to be from registered voters who can't sign twice. Then you have to submit these signatures. Then they have to be verified. Now, if you do happen to get those signatures and you beat back the challenge, but the party selected someone else to run, then there's a primary. So the two Republican challengers have to face each other.
Would there have been a primary had there not been the other person with the signatures?
No, I mean there would. You can have like 4 or 5 people get enough signatures. I mean it's almost impossible.
Oh, all right. That's what I'm saying.
But you can have a
the
primary,
numbers, especially
right.
in a town this size.
Oh yeah, you can have a primary with 3 or 4 people on there. But you know the bottom line is the rules. This is going back to the 20s and 30s. There was issues with the Communist Party, the Socialist Party. So a lot of these states drew up rules to keep these parties out. So they raised the signature requirements from like 500 to 1,000 to 15,000 on the state level. Now, if you want to run for governor and be on the ballot, I think you need 50,000 signatures. I mean, they put these roadblocks in over and over again to keep people out of the process.
This is one of the title of this program is Election Process Monopoly. So I guess it is a monopoly when somebody's.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole purpose of my lawsuit is I'm challenging the New York State Board of Elections and the Suffolk County Board of Elections for enforcing rules that contradict the 14th Amendment, which is my equal protection clause. In other words,
is
the
the
14th Amendment.
due process,
Right, well, no,
right?
14th Amendment is equal protection under the law.
Okay.
That Congress or the states cannot make any law that is disparate towards someone else.
to one
Right. So in other words,
party
they
or
can't
one
say, you know, we're
segment of
going to
the
create
society
these
or whatever.
rules, and then it ends up affecting me as a minority or whatever the case may be. They can't do that because in the Constitution you have the Elections Clause, where the federal government leaves it up to the states to make the time, the place, and the manner on how we select our representatives. They sort of step back. But their rules cannot contradict the federal law, which is the 14th Amendment. So that's the whole crux of my argument, saying that these state laws contradict federal law.
Yeah, that's the same as in our family law situation. There's so many things that you can do inside a family court of equity,
Right.
that you can't, like due process, for instance. They could or the criminality, contempt charges and things like that. They could just put you in jail for. Because you owe a couple of bucks to this law guardian, you're in. We just had a show where that
Oh, yeah?
happened. Guy went to jail for not paying his law guardian. Meanwhile, his salary was $26,000 at the time, and he had a heart transplant.
Oh my God.
I mean, you want to
My
talk about
problem seemed pretty small compared to that.
That's right. Where do you see that show? So there's also because I'm trouble understanding
Yeah.
this part. Cross-party affiliations and
endorsements,
cross endorsements was not
Right.
the same thing, right?
So, well, yeah, sort of. What happens is you'll have a candidate, and I'll bring this up because I was involved in another lawsuit against SPOTA.
You have to stop doing that. Oh yeah, but
Well, nobody
that's
else
the
would.
last time I talked to you, and I was agreeing with you at the time.
Well-
How did Spoda jump out and get this additional no term limits for him either?
Yeah, I mean, back in 1992, the voters passed a referendum overwhelmingly that all county officials can only be in office for 3 terms, 12 years. Everybody. So Spoda's 12th year was coming up.
Yeah.
He was about to expire and ride off into the sunset, but because he is who he is, decided that he would let it stay another term. So he sued the Suffolk County legislature, saying that the referendum that you put in front of the people was illegitimate because Spoda, or the district
How the
attorney
hell
in
did
Suffolk
he win
County,
that?
I'll
'Cause-
tell you exactly how. He claimed in his lawsuit that the Suffolk County district attorney was not a Suffolk employee, was not a county employee. He was a creation of the state because his position is mentioned in the state constitution.
Nice.
Even though he gets a salary from the county,
Suffolk
our
County.
taxpayers pay his
Listen-
pensions, all his work is in the county.
Does he go up to Baltimore every day? I mean, Buffalo every day,
You
or
know,
Syracuse?
It
Does he
was
see Albany?
such a stretch to the imagine. But guess
yeah.
who the judge was? Judge Grillo, who happened to be his. I guess they rented a building together in Babylon like 30 years ago. They all know each other.
Did anything have anything to do with the fact that the county legislature became Democratic at some point? And
Well, the sad part is that I was contacted by someone who wanted to run against Spoda. And they said, you know, he's suing the county, and if he wins, then the legislator has the right to appeal it. Because of the fear of Spoda back then, I mean, he was like J. Edgar Hoover.
yeah, he had a lot of corruption there.
All 18 legislators feared him.
That's right.
So they rolled over and they decided not to appeal. So they called me in, because I was a big proponent of term limits, they called me in as an intervener. So they said, in case the legislator rolls over, you're a private citizen who's a registered voter, you can jump on this lawsuit and file the appeal for us, in case that happens.
As a term limit expert?
No, just
as a
as
what?
somebody who's a troublemaker,
An
who
in-
has
an
no
intervener.
connections, who has no jobs in Suffolk
Where
County.
was the value to you?
None, other than the fact that I thought it was the right thing to do. So what ended up happening is that, like on cue, Steve Ballone and the Suffolk County legislator put their tail between their legs and ran away.
Yeah, I know.
So now I get called in, I got to sign all these papers. It goes to the Federal Appeals Court in Brooklyn. Out of how many people in Suffolk? Over 2 million people?
Yeah.
Out of 2 million people in Suffolk County, not one person called me up to support me against Spoda. I had several people call me to say I was crazy because he'll come after me, he'll threaten you, you'll get you on some dummy charges or whatever. In fact, there was someone on the Suffolk County Town Board who told me that too. And I said, listen, it's the right thing to do. But anyway, the appeals court ruled in his favor, and they wiped out the term limits for him. But now
You know,
we know what happened
everybody
to him.
knew about the story about Spoda, you know, stretching out and getting another term. Everybody heard about Ballone's situation and the corruption, how deep it was, especially with the police, and they still voted him in.
But back when the chips were on the table and the legislator had a chance to appeal that initial Supreme Court decision, they all ran and hid. Every single one of them. Now Ballone's out there saying, oh, I knew Spoda was a crook for years.
I knew the
full
corruption's
of
on
it.
both sides of the aisle. There's no such thing as
I
like it's
mean,
only a
yeah,
one.
they're
But
all-
it's so deep in Suffolk County, and we're totally in debt.
But this is how the worst get on top, because of the two-party system, and this is how they stay
Good
there.
segue, Pete. Good segue. All right, what's the story with collusion between the two parties? You said that it's similar to, or sounds like,
Of course,
collusion.
I mean, they write the laws. I mean, the legislators write the laws. The judges are picked by the parties. So they could very easily decide that, hey, this is a violation of the 14th Amendment, at least in my opinion, that, you know, you can't write that they need 1,500 signatures. Why 1,500? Why not 2,000? Why 500? Why not 300?
This is political engineering, but is this why you said the use of the courts quite literally for this type of thing?
Oh,
They
absolutely.
utilize the courts to make these things work?
Right. Like I said, they challenged me, and they came up with this, half his signatures are fraudulent, and then I would have to file a response. I would have to go out and hire an attorney, and they know that. But all these guys, it's the good old boys club, the Democrats and Republicans. They got their little cliques in there. And if you want to join, you have to get the blessings of the party boss.
I was going to ask you a stupid question. I'm not going to ask now.
I'll give you a stupid answer.
The question. All right, let's try it. No, I was going to say why? How did it get so tight? How did the restrictions get so tight? I know they were trying to, as you said before, screen out some of the communists and things like that, the socialists in early phases. But at this point, there doesn't seem to be very much progress.
No, and there won't be until people wake up. And that's why you have apathy. People just don't want to get involved because, perfect example, a lot of people didn't like Trump, a lot of people didn't like Hillary. But that's what we had. I mean, you had 16 other Republicans try to get the nomination, but there's thousands of other people in local races that would make great candidates, that would make great office holders, but they don't want to run.
And what makes a great politician, a great office holder, is a whole other story, isn't it?
Well, there's a contradiction in terms there.
Yeah.
A great candidate would be somebody who says very little, and a great office holder would be the same thing, somebody who does very little.
Yeah, what a shame, oh my God. So how is it going with the state of the events on your lawsuit?
Well, we're getting ready to file. Apparently, it's a lot more intricate than my attorney initially thought, but we have tons of case law in our favor, and we're just going to throw everything in there. Because we know initially it'll get knocked down, but we're really looking at the appeal, so we had to beef up a lot of our
You have to get to the appeal
cases.
in order to change anything.
Exactly.
But what's it cost to get to that point?
Well,
you don't have to give me a dollar amount, but I mean, it's a fairly costly thing, isn't it, to get to that point?
It's not too bad. I mean, a lot of it I'm writing myself. I do have a lot of lawyers in my family who tell me when I'm doing something wrong, but the filing fees are very minimal. So, people don't understand that, you don't need a high-priced lawyer in order to file a lawsuit.
In our area, we're just impossibly trapped in family court.
Yeah.
Impossibly trapped. It's court of equity. You're in there for them to obtain money,
right?
And that's it.
Wow.
I mean, you can have family, you can have kids with needs. Not going to matter.
Wow.
How much money can I get? You're out of here, or you're in jail. It's the wild, wild west of family court.
It sounds like it.
It certainly is. I've been doing that for 15 years.
Wow.
I can't jump out of it because now I feel committed to it.
Well, again, you're doing the right thing. You're not doing for fame and glory.
Can I run for office? You think I'd have a chance?
Listen, you'll be very disillusioned when you run for office.
No, I'm sure I would. No,
but inspired at the same time.
Yes, I could feel good about myself. That might help. No, it's not happening, but it was an idea. Back to where you are. So where are you currently? Not with the suit, but what can you do going forward with your book that might advance you? Where you want to go?
So I'm trying to coincide the filing of the lawsuit and the book in the middle of March to get everything going. And I'm going to contact a lot of people, try to get in front of people and talk to them about it. And people don't understand. In fact, back in November this past year, I was invited by a local civic organization. They asked me if I was running for office. I really wasn't, but I said, why not? I could run as a write-in candidate. Because when you run as a write-in, you don't need anybody's permission.
That's your only possibility, am I right? If you think that you could run for office.
Right. Well,
if you don't have any connection with either party.
Correct. My whole purpose of the lawsuit is, and if you boil it down to a little ball like this, is that in order to get your name pre-printed on the ballot, you have to jump through all these hoops.
Right.
That restricts my ballot access. To me, that's unconstitutional.
So you want to level
So in other words,
the need.
Everybody who wants to run for office should be able to get their name on the ballot. There shouldn't be any of these crazy restrictions.
Might that overload the system?
Right. So the flip side of that is that's great. Now nobody gets their name on the ballot. My friend Bob Lavigna brought this up. Well, right now when you go to a ballot, you see all these pre-printed names and people just check off whether they want to vote for, whether they're Republican or Democrat. So that's the reflex. Very hard for people to write in somebody's name, even though you already have a pen in your hand. But now look at the flip side is, suppose nobody's name is on the ballot, and you have to write in your candidates. You have to write Donald Trump. You have to write Hillary Clinton. It's no longer pre-printed because the preprints discriminate against me because I don't have the same access to that
to
ballot.
make it nice and bold so people legible and so you can be seen.
Listen, it's
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that that's what's going to happen, or did it happen?
No, that's what I'm trying to change.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Is equal access to the ballot because they put the rules in place So I can't get my name pre-printed on that ballot. That's what it boils down to. So like a Berlin airlift, if you write my name in, I bypass all of these regulations, all these ridiculous signature requirements, legal challenges, campaigns that never seem to end, and all the money. You can just write my name. I can write your name in.
Make sure you do that. But your lawsuit's going to be about making. It's against the way that they're doing it.
Right.
But you don't have to put those things that you just talked about in as part of the lawsuit.
No, not yet. But
You don't do any of that.
No, that's a solution. That's a possible solution that could come out. They'll have to have some type of state committee to come up with some rules that will coincide with the decision of the lawsuit.
All right.
But at the end of the day, if somebody wants to run for office and they have great ideas and they really want to serve the public, they can. Because you have to go to the party boss. It's like the 19th century all over again.
Yeah.
You got to go down to party headquarters. You got to kiss the ring. You got to donate some money. It's ridiculous.
Pete Nichols, thanks very much for this program, enlightening as it was, and I wish you good luck with the book. You've been watching Gray Matters, the program that shines the light on events in the society we live in and the need for education and reform. To keep you up to speed in the world of politics, exciting trends like this one, and hot-button issues of the day. Remember, you can't get this information on your own, and we'll bring it to your TV every single week. Thank you for watching Gray Matters.